The technology race. It's not a battle that you can usually win. Which is to say, it's not a battle at all. I just called it a race. And I don't mean it's like a race of futuristic beings built of technology. Although I guess that would be a robot, which could be a race, and could be technology. And we could battle them. Unless there was one that was on your side who traveled back in time. Okay, so if it's not clear to you at this point in the video what the subject of the video is, I don't blame you, and I blame the writing staff. Anthony really cocked up that intro there, but I'm gonna bring it back on the rails. Today's episode is about future-proofing, and it's a pretty tough one to tackle. Like, you know how every single day there's some kind of amazing news coming out about nano crystal super teraflop, carbon processor, nano, yeah. If you watch Netlink Daily, then you know exactly how much new technology is coming out every day. But even once that hardware finally trickles down and ends up in consumer products, it's hard to figure out what to buy into and what to avoid. I mean, it's a question that we get asked all the time. Like, let's take motherboards, for example. Should you buy a new motherboard with DDR3 memory, or should you get like a Z170 Skylake compatible motherboard that supports DDR4? Will it matter in the future? The answer is unfortunately not actually in this video, since we don't have crystal balls. If we did, my doctor would let me know that it's a big problem. There is no simple answer, as every person's choice will have to be different based on their needs, and there's that X factor of like, we don't know the future. Remember the thing about the crystal balls, that terrible joke I made? Yeah, that thing. But what we can tell you is whether or not you should worry about future-proofing your system. The simple answer is that there are certain components of a computer that you do want to future-proof, while there are others that you simply cannot. Let's start with the ones that you can't. Rapidly evolving categories like processors, video cards, and storage are three segments where you'll pretty much never win by investing a bunch of money in being future-proof. At the very minimum, there's a refresh every year with at least iterative changes, and not just faster, but sometimes new features that could end up being really cool and important. So our advice, buy the best of the current generation that you can comfortably afford when you're shopping for parts. Unless you're like 2 weeks away from a product launch, in which case, maybe wait it out. But other than that, just kind of go for it. Because with these components, you won't feel like you're missing out that much if you're 1 or 2 generations behind. If you pick up a decent product from a previous generation, like, let's face it, there's a lot of people out there still using, Core i7-875Ks or even Q6600 quad cores. People who bought like a decent product at the time and are still able to use them today. Let us know in the comments, actually, if you're using older hardware quite happily. On the other end of the spectrum, there are the categories that you absolutely should invest in for the long run. In front of them, we've got a couple of them: cases and power supplies. Now, I remember like 10 years ago when power supplies were evolving really rapidly. Like, you blinked once and it was like 350 watt power supplies were the bee's knees. You blinked again and it was like, if you didn't have a 430 watt, you weren't gonna be able to run your new graphics card. Well, now it's pretty much gotten to the point where they're pretty darn good if you're buying from a reputable maker. So we've got the G750M and V1200 power supplies in front of us. The G series supports Haswell's zero load operation and is rated at 80 plus gold efficiency, while the V1200 is rated at 80 plus platinum and comes with 12 8-pin connectors for video cards. 12! I don't care, DirectX 14 rolls around. You're not going to be running 6 graphics cards in your system. There simply isn't enough space. So they're impressive power supplies, but the reality of it is, good power supplies come with really long warranties, in this case 5 and 7 year. So if you were to buy a similar grade power supply even 5 years ago, you could have gotten 80 plus silver to 80 plus gold efficiency, pretty darn close, a lot of PCI Express connectors, and you could still be using that power supply very easily today. The next one is cases. So this is the Cooler Master Master Case 5, which is a good example of a future-proof case because of the flexibility that it offers. I mean, quite frankly, any sort of standardized case is going to offer pretty good flexibility, but these days there are a few things to look for. Things like modular and removable drive cages are great since it gives you a lot of options in terms of the cards that you can install, as well as the types of drives that you install. I mean, who knows? 5 years from now, we might not be using any 3.5-inch drives in our regular systems. We might be installing all PCI Express drives like Anthony actually has installed in this particular one. Another one to watch for is radiator mounting options. So this one's got options to mount radiators in a couple of different places. That's good. Maybe you won't be using air cooling forever. Not only that, but Cooler Master is also planning to offer 3D printing sort of like templates that you can follow along with to upgrade this case, which is pretty darn cool and will be especially important once 3D printing gets more prevalent. And the case is another one where we can look back historically and say like, hey, there were cases from 5 to 10 years ago, whether it's Silverstone TJ07 or the Antec P180 series, that had, you know, what I would consider to still be fairly modern features, whether it's, you know, all aluminum construction for the TJ07 or like fan filters with a hinged front panel and thermal zones and sound dampening like on the P180 series. Then it's stuff that if you bought one like used or whatever, or you bought one way back then, you could still use it today. And I guess that's the overall message that we're trying to get across here. If it's something that's moving really fast, like a great example would be monitors from about, I'd say from about 2008 to about 2014, basically nothing happened. Whereas now, it's like there's a new amazing, you know, refresh rate milestone or screen size or curve or whatever happening every 6 months. If it's something that's moving fast, invest only what you can comfortably afford. But if it's something that's moving very slowly, like cases, or, you know, a great example would be if there's a keyboard that you really like, and you can literally use for 10 to 20 years if you get a quality keyboard with like Cherry MX switches, then maybe do splurge a little bit. And that is the moral of the story. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always tweet at the NCIX team over here on that side, or maybe you can even find the answer in one of the other videos on the NCIX channel over here. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this from NCIX.